In the past 8 months of our development journey, we are constantly building our combat system. I've gathered a lot of your feedback and tweaked a lot of features in our game to make it more fun and engaging. This devlog, we will add another mechanic to our combat system. It's a new stat, just like health and life essence, and its main purpose is to add a bit of risk to the combat mechanic. And this unique stat is called stability. In our game's lore, you will be playing as a wisp that can transform into different monsters with different playstyles. You can transform into wood creatures, skeletons, armor, and many more. And I want to give a bit of lore that ties with our gameplay. Hence, we have this new stat called stability. Stability is a stat that measures how well you hold the form you are transforming into. The more you use skills, attacks, or if you get hit by the enemy, the stability stat decreases. If your stability decreases to 0 or less, and if you get hit by an enemy, my plan is to have the monster that you transform into get destroyed for a certain period of time, while the wisp gathers the pieces back together, leaving you open to attacks and capture. This will mainly solve some problems with the combat gameplay. First is spamming attacks. We don't want our combat to just spam skills and attacks. We want it to be more tactical, where you manage your stability while attacking and defending yourself. Second is tanking hits from enemy. In our previous combat demo, it's easy to just take the hits from the enemies. There is no penalty or danger at all, except for the fact that you will get damage, which I think is boring. With this stability feature, we will make our combat more defensive, since it's more risky to just dive in and take all those hits. Third, the new stability stat will add diversity to our passive skill tree. Just like our health and life essence, the stability stat can passively be upgraded in our skill tree. This will give diversity to all monster creatures that you'll be transforming into, and this will make game progression through our skill tree a bit more interesting. And lastly, with the introduction of the stability stat, we will also be adding diversity in enemy weapons. We will have weapons that has the advantage to break your stability, as well as weak ones but have high damage output to your health or life essence. I'll be explaining the details on these weapon types by the end of the video. So to start making this new stat, let's modify first our UI for our health and life essence. Let's make the life essence slider bar smaller and copy it to make our new stability bar. Then let's add a new stability stat to our player preference. Then let's make a feature that will ease the sliders if the stability changes. We'll just copy and modify the code that we have for our health sliders. Now let's test it. As you can see, as we adjust the values for our stability, the slider changes. Then a lighter green slider bar eases in, giving it an ease effect. Then let's make a feature that will replenish or regenerate our stability in time. Let's test it. It's working. As you can see, our stability now is regenerating as time passes by. Now, for our next feature, let's have our stability decrease for every time we use a skill. Let's start with our healing skill. Let's modify the heal function and deduct stability every time we call it. Let's test it. It's working. Now, healing is more riskier since it deducts a lot of stability from you. Now let's apply it to our shield bash skill, our dodge ability, and lastly our normal attacks, including our execute attacks. Everything seems to be working. The next feature we want to implement with stability is when we're taking hits. We want our stability decrease for every time we get hit by an attack. Now let's quickly fix that. Now let's test it. It's working. Now for the next feature, we want to implement damage reduction to our stability if we are using our shield in guard mode. We will add a variable called guard stability reduction that will deduct damage from the final stability damage. This will give us, the player, a chance to defend and reduce the stability damage. As for the next feature, we will add a penalty for the regeneration of our stability for every time we are in guard mode, or if we are sprinting. Now let's test it. As you can see, when we're sprinting, the regen is much slower compared to when we're just walking. Let's test guarding. It's working. Now that stability is implemented in all combat features, let's talk a bit about enemy weapons and how they interact with our stats. The enemies in Wisplight has many weapon types, and these weapons have different effects on our stats. Basically, each weapon will have different damage values and reduction per stat. For example, our standard short sword will have a health damage of 10, a stability damage of 10, and 0 essence damage. It's a well-rounded weapon that is usually carried by our mercenary guard, while our mace have a health damage of 10, but its stability damage is higher at 20 with 0 essence damage. I want blunt weapons like the mace have higher stability damage compared to edged weapons. The mace is usually carried by the fast and agile torchbearers. Although they lack in health and defense unlike the mercenary guard, they compensate for their high stability damage output. They also carry with them a torch with a lesser health damage of 5, a stability damage of 10, and an essence damage of 10, which in our lore, all weapons with fire will damage your life essence, making the torchbearer, even though less tanky, a threat. Apart from weapons, we also want to diversify our monsters. We want them to have different max stats for each monster type. For example, we want the skeleton warrior to have moderate max health, moderate max essence, but low stability, while the mage type skeleton necromancer will have low max health, high max essence, and low max stability. All of these stats are affected depending on which node in the skill tree you are allocating your skills to. Another example is for our armor. We want the tank type armor to have high max health, high max stability, but low max essence, while the glass cannon type water elemental will have low max health, low max stability, but high max essence. All of these stats are affected by the skills and attributes that you'll be allocating in your skill tree. For example, if you want your skeleton warrior to have more max HP and stability, you want to give them a skill that lets them use armor, increasing their base health and stability. So what's next for this stability feature? On our next devlog, we will finish the stability mechanic by making animations for our skeleton when we break down to little pieces. I'd like to thank my patrons for supporting the funding of our project's assets. Also, if you want to support Wisplight, feel free to wishlist our game on Steam. Subscribe to the channel if you want to follow the development of Wisplight, or if you want to support funding Wisplight's assets, I'll leave a link to our Patreon page in the description. So that's it. Let me know what you think of our new feature down in the comments. Till next time.